All right, Coach. So it is Civil War week. Game is in Corvallis, where Oregon has lost each of their last two contests. It was a dominant win last year at Autzen Stadium, 31-7. But this week always has a different feel to it, and I think now it's even more unique now that the Ducks and the Beavers are not playing in the same conference for the first time, and I literally don't even know how long. And having the Civil War be a non-conference matchup is strange to be sure, but when you were a head coach going into this game, what was, if anything, different about being at practice, getting ready?
Well, it's always different when you play your in-state rival, and certainly this rivalry has been going on longer than almost any rivalry in the country, certainly longer than any on the West Coast. And this is a game that is scary because we haven't done well against the Beavers, and like you mentioned, we've lost the last two games up there, and we need to correct some things. They're coming off of a 2-0 start. They shut out San Diego State, that normally has a good offense. I did not see that game, so I can't speak to whether San Diego State still has the weapons and they're as good a football team as they've shown in the recent years. But it's an impressive start by Oregon State, and it's a tough place to play. And it will be tougher because I'm sure there's a lot of animosity from the Beavers and the Cougars that they were left out of the revolving door on the realignment. And this is going to be a very emotional game for Oregon State. And we not only have to match that, we have to match that with execution and make sure we take care of the football.
Yeah, San Diego State's got a new head coach, so I think their offense is in a little bit of a transition year, but still going on the road and holding a team to no points, I think speaks volumes to what Trent Bray, the Beavers head coach, former defensive coordinator, has instilled on that side of the football. And when you look at this Oregon team, Rich, on paper, to a lot of people, Oregon should be able to go in and win comfortably. But that was the case each of the last couple of weeks as well. Can you remember a time when you had a team that you felt should have played at a higher level or should have beaten a team that you didn't, and kind of how you handled that as a head coach?
Yeah, like I said, 94 season, we started 1-2, and we certainly should have been no worse than 2-1, maybe 3-0. We had a good football team, but we didn't execute. We didn't do the right things we should, and you got to fix it. And I was fortunate that I had a great group of young men on that team that really dug deep and figured some things out and played more as a total team moving forward after that shaky start.
When I look at this Oregon State game, I see a team that wants to run the football, which is no surprise because you've got the defense coordinator from the previous staff. They like to run the football a lot over there in Corvallis. That's going to be the case once again this week. How have you assessed what Oregon has brought to the table defensively after last week? Ashton Genty was, bottled up right until he wasn't, and he was able to break some long runs against this Oregon defense. But what have you seen from Oregon's rush defense this year?
Well, I thought in the first game it was good, and the last game we know that Boise State has a great back, and they did a lot of things that kept our defense off balance. And when you give a great back an opportunity to break a tackle or two, those broken tackles can add up to a lot of yards, which they did. I can remember one run I saw him make that I think he broke about 4 tackles.
Yeah.
So tackling is imperative, and if you don't let them break tackles, I think the running game can be contained. If you don't, the Beavers, as we know, the last time we lost up there, I think they ran the ball. They didn't throw a pass the last quarter.
I think it was 6 completed passes on the game.
Yeah, but they didn't throw it at all in the fourth quarter. They just ran it down our throat. So I think we should expect that they want to run the ball. We know that they want to run it. and we need to make sure that they can't run it efficiently every time.
This game was brought into question as to whether it would actually exist when Oregon left for the Big Ten and Oregon State and Washington State got left behind, and they moved the Texas Tech game, who went up and they got beat badly by Washington State up in Pullman on Saturday, which was a heck of a game for the Cougs. Yeah, I mean that was a statement win for Jake Dickert and company, and I'm glad Oregon's got Oregon State on the schedule rather than Washington State. But certainly the Beavs, not a game that you can ever afford to overlook when you have the rivalry factor as well. But when this game was in doubt, Coach, not every Oregon fan felt this way, not every Oregon State fan felt this way, but I feel this way. That this game should be played every year, regardless of whether the teams are in the same conference. That's how I feel about it. What do you say?
I absolutely feel the same way. I said this when the league broke up, that you can't disregard the history of this game, the Civil War, which I know we're not supposed to call it that anymore, but it is civil war in this state. We're 40 miles apart. I've been on both sides of the rivalry. It would have been a crime to not continue this game on a yearly basis, because you need to keep some of the history that Oregon and Oregon State have had combined in and out. By the way, when I played at Oregon State, we were not a member of the conference. We were independents. They kicked us out over money. And this is another deal about money.
Boy, that sounds familiar.
So, and then Oregon State and Oregon were admitted back into the conference. So they were together then. And this is the first time, really, I think the two schools have not been together in the same conference or independent together. But it's a tradition that should not go away. It's a wonderful game. You know how much the in-state fans enjoy it, and it's just something that should happen every year.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you agree. You were a part of a lot of those games on the sideline in your time at Oregon from 1977 to 1994. Do you have a favorite matchup with the Beavs that sticks out in your head as, man, that was the best game that we played, or that was the most fun game to win?
Every game until I lost my first one. I think it was about 6 or 7 in, I think.
Do you remember which year that was?
Well, not exactly, but I don't.
Gotcha. When you look at where this Oregon team is now in the Big Ten and Oregon State in the Pac-12, which is still technically alive, I was sad to see that league go away because I grew up with it, and you've known it for even longer than I have. Back when it was the Pac-8, which was before the Arizona schools got added from the WAC, and they made it the Pac-10, and then it was the Pac-12, and now it's the Pac-12 legally speaking, but it is just a two-team conference at the moment. When Oregon announced they were going to the Big Ten, what was your initial reaction?
Well, I think at that point, Oregon was kind of up against it. The league had already started to fall apart with Colorado leaving, UCLA and SC leaving. And I think, unfortunately, Oregon did what was best for them. It's too bad that Oregon State couldn't have been included, but they weren't. And it's just a new era, and it's not over. The leagues are still going to be going through, I think, some transition in the next 4 to 5 years that could end up being as surprising and shocking as some of the things we've already seen.
Yeah, I think the advantage for Oregon being in the Big Ten is you have, quote unquote, a seat at the table, at the big kids table.
That's correct.
Because those are the two, Big Ten, SEC, those are the power conferences. They're making all the decisions. They've got the most money and everything of the sort.